Welcome again to my channel. I'm JW, and today I would be giving an insight on the current happenings in the cryptocurrency world, and today I would be focusing on XRP. Hey ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. As always, it is JW here, back to your daily crypto news and analysis, and today we are going to be talking about Ripple and XRP, as was the vast majority of crypto and finance. And with that being said, I hope that you are all having a beautiful day. Or a beautiful night where you guys are out there in the world. So recently, Wrath of Conan actually posted a link to a new Swift article, and we have today Swift proposed a shared ledger for payment data. Using blockchain technology, they suggest their transaction manager discuss the benefits DP. It's heavy stuff. The discussion is sure to raise lots of inquiries for the XRP ledger, as well as supporters of Ripple. And we have an ISO 202 base messaging layer that will improve the shared ledger proposition by providing a payload of rich and structured data to fulfill the adjacent functions that are necessary to the instantaneous and frictionless completion of any regulated financial transaction. Now, the important thing to understand about this is that everyone will get a little bit upset and say, oh, that's it's killing XRP and replacing what Ripple has been doing, but this is all nonsense. However, you should concentrate on the real connections here, and we'll address it and talk about it briefly. To this post, we have the requirement for rich data in a shared ledger paradigm. If we scroll down, we can see the idea of a new universal shared ledger for digital payments and assets, which is gaining traction as a means of revolutionizing the recording and settlement of transactions. When paired with a messaging layer, a shared ledger could create a potent offering capable of supporting the rich structured data exchange required for transactions in regulated assets or money. We can also see the reference to the BES here regarding their unified ledger, which talks a little bit about capturing the full benefits of tokenization. Finally, the Monetary Authority of Singapore is mentioned. Also the IMF around their X platform, which goes by the name XC. However, the MAS and the BIs are closely involved with Ripple. We'll talk a little bit more about that in relation to the BIs, which I'm sure you're all aware of, but we'll talk a little bit more about it. Additionally, they mentioned the RLM, or Regulatory Regulated Liability Network, or RLN, which is this actual digital sovereign currency over here. This adds to the worldwide discussion about the nature of money by examining the technical, legal, and commercial requirements needed to supply on-chain, as presented by a group of US industry actors. 24/7 programmable final settlement in sovereign currencies made up of the liabilities of financial institutions subject to both public and private regulation. These activities have the potential to enable the creation of a more functionally rich financial system that complies with all current laws and regulations. They go into great detail about this and even list all the names that are connected to it. For example, there are many Ripple partners and players on this platform who can be linked directly to the CPMI group. I've talked a little bit more about that. Nevertheless, let's talk about what a shared ledger is and the kinds of advantages it might provide. Today, financial institutions or financial market infrastructures record transactions separately on their own databases and use a messaging structure to reconcile and instruct positions across different records of value. However, in the future, other models may adopt a different strategy. This represents a shift in the way financial systems and books of record are kept. The concept of a shared ledger. This is all about digitization, of course, with ISO 202 and other things, and it's more about the common infrastructure. So why do I think this is going to fail? Well, I don't think a shared ledger is the best course of action, simply because nearly every other country will not agree to a shared platform. This is the same problem we have with Swift, as most countries are moving against it because they prefer complete decentralization. As a result, a shared ledger where someone is in charge will not be used. I've discussed this previously, but even if this is the case, perhaps this does become the real deal. They also mentioned the CPMI group we have as such. The shared ledger model could potentially help to improve the cost, speed, predictability, and accessibility of cross-border payments, which in turn supports the G20 roadmap and the Committee of Payments and Market Infrastructure the CPMI Group. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But first, let's talk about a few other points. They mentioned blockchain technology, which the shared ledger would use to record whether or not a movement of funds has occurred. They mentioned this, but they don't name any names or anything about it. It's just a very vague mention of blockchain technology. They also mention ISO 22, obviously. Cross-border payments, which in turn supports the G20 roadmap and the Committee of Payments and Market Infrastructure, the CPMI Group. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but first, let's talk about a few other points. They mentioned blockchain technology, which the shared ledger would use to record whether or not a movement of funds has occurred. They mention this, but they don't name any names or anything about it. It's just a very vague mention of blockchain technology. They also mention ISO 22, obviously, the current and future needs of its members and their clients. And we actually know that they're already doing this with the CPMI Group. Let me go back to the CPMI Group. This is the composition of the Cross-Border Payments Task Force Insurability and Extension, and this is the Committee on Payments and Market Infrastructures that they did quote from the BIs. This goes back to July 31st, 2023, and these are all of those members. The ECB is on here, along with a few other major players, but of course you have Ripple and SWIFT, so they're already cooperating and working together on this task force even with MasterCard. Because once again, MasterCard is mentioned. There are some pretty significant CBDC initiatives that Ripple has already undertaken, but judging by the names on this list, you're trying to convince me that you don't already know that Ripple is collaborating with some of the biggest players in this space. Give me a break. I won't sit here and say, hey, it looks like SWIFT is trying to replace Ripple. Guys, SWIFT doesn't even have a messaging and settlement layer, that's all it is. Let's return to this. Anderson made a great post in which he stated, I believe, this is the most likely result. This is going to cause even more fragmentation around the current financial system or even the future financial system. So what's going to connect all of this? What's going to connect? It all comes back to the idea of a bridge currency now. Multiple shared ledgers were maybe 3 to 4 shared ledgers as massive winners evolving over time. I see it very unlikely that 190 countries would be able to coordinate a transition to a single shared ledger in a big bang approach. I completely agree. I remember this from Money 2020 USA, where it was titled New Rails to New Worlds, Building Inclusive Innovative Infrastructures for Global Payments. The head of payments at all three, Citi and SWIFT Ripple, were on the panel, which consisted of remarkable female leaders who discussed the work being done to shape and implement the next generation cross-border payments infrastructure. They also discussed the G20's efforts to adopt new technologies and ISO 2022, as well as how we can connect everything. Finally, they mentioned the regulated liability network and its potential implications for the future of interbank transactions.
Let's go back to this. So Anderson put out a great post. He said, I believe this is the most likely outcome. Multiple shared ledgers were maybe 3 to 4 shared ledgers as massive winners evolving over time. I see it very unlikely that 190 countries would be able to coordinate a transition to a single shared ledger in a big bang approach, and I completely agree. More likely specialization amongst a few, and with more than one, you're not locked in with a single technology. And this is going to cause even more fragmentation around the current financial system or even the future financial system. So what's going to connect all of this? What's going to settle all of these transactions on all these different ledgers? It all goes back to the idea of a bridge currency. Now, also, I mind you, go back 4 months. This was at Money 2020 USA, titled New Rails to New Worlds, Building Inclusive Innovative Infrastructures for Global Payments. This is with SWIFT, Ripple, and Citi, the head of payments at all three. And this is a panel of exceptional female leaders discussing what is being done on the ground in some of the most systemically important institutions and emerging fintechs to shape and implement the next generation cross-border payments infrastructure. And this is also focused on what the G20 is doing around adoption of new technologies as well as ISO 20022, and also how we can connect everything. And they even mention the regulated liability network here and what it could mean around the future of interbank cross-border transactions. When we are looking at this and we're talking about the future of payments, guess what? Ripple is at every single table. I don't think that I need to sit here and say, hey, I think that Ripple's part of this. No, you can clearly see that they are. But also, right, remember what David Schwartz has always said. My dream scenario is Swift makes a deal with Ripple where all their banks get to use RippleNet for free, maybe even paying Swift fits our XRP strategy perfectly. Now you might be questioning, well, why would Swift want to do this? It's because Ripple has everything under one umbrella. They can connect anything. They could settle anything. They have liquidity on demand. And we already have them collaborating here within the CPMI group. And we also have them discussing the future of global payments and the infrastructures of the new world and the new rails as well. But also, that's not just it. Point to be understood, collaboration is the new name of the game, not competition. Big shout out to Smoke Dog for this. Swift is protecting their middleman status by opening up its platform to offer more services. Ripple and Swift have the same clients and have the same issues. They will work together. And here we have a few discussions regarding this. We have Swift has evolved in other ways as well, and now sees itself as a platform that offers more services and works with a wider range of partners. It's not a competition. I've always said this, right? It's not about competition. It's not about replacing Swift. What's important to the bank is to solve its clients' problems regardless of which networks they use. If a client works with an alternative network such as Ripple, SCB will work with them too. Over here, we have big institutions like Swift are attempting to force their way to protect their middleman status. And we also have Still. If you have been keeping up with our FAs, you already know full well that blockchain/DLTs are messaging systems that just happen to host tokens that are a derivative of assets with an underlying market value. But what sets them apart is who can control the market, or the network, sorry. DLTs such as the XRP Ledger and Hedera Hashgraph are fully vetted and approved at the validator level. But then also, we have over here, how to integrate and use Ripple. Ripple Pilot integration can occur in weeks. Integrate with back office functions such as support, audit trail, compliance. And this is how Ripple Labs provides business and integration support. You can see the full breakdown here. Now you might be questioning, Nick, why are you bringing this up? Over here we have context, bank disintermediation. Ripple is at the forefront of this, at the center point, and you can see all of the other players here as well. And you have the back office on the right side. Now, again, big shout out to Smoke Dog for all of this. And we have Swift and Ripple documentation that Ripple can simply integrate with a bank's back office systems in a matter of weeks. With bank grade security and being an institutional favorite, it's obvious why when banks want to go cross-border, they choose Ripple. Now, also, we have, out of all cryptocurrencies, why would banks choose Ripple? Because Ripple has the most interest and adoption from central banks and other large financial entities. That's why. Over the target, we have adoption, central banks. Unlike other cryptocurrencies, Ripple has the most interest/adoption from central banks and other large financial entities. And it's because of on-demand liquidity for cross-border transfers and payments combined with the development of personal CBDCs. We also have on the right side, new forms of cross-border and cross-currency settlement, use of crypto assets as a bridge currency, Ripple Connect, response by Swift with GPI, Ripple liquidity alternatives based on DLT, CLS, NET, settlement assets as a proxy for CBDCs, and we also have could also be combined with CBDCs, tiered CBDC. At the end of the day, as we really look at what's going on here, right, it's all about collaboration. If we really look at Swift and Ripple, it's a match made in heaven. And it's something that I could foresee happening very, very soon as well. We also have collaboration, not competition. They work together, but say competition to make us think they're competing. So we always compete against each other too, but they don't see it. Take Coca-Cola versus Pepsi. Top shareholders, same 2 or 3 companies. And yes, if you actually did look at this, it's pretty much the same exact companies that are holding all of the, or most of the shares. But it is all about collaboration. I've talked about this. The BIS has even said it's all about collaboration. We also have, it's certainly possible technology is complementary since Ripple cares mostly about settlement while Swift is a messaging service. Like I said, Swift doesn't have settlement and clearing. They only have messaging. Ripple built messaging because Swift messaging at the time was terrible. And we even have here, the main reason we built RippleNet and Xcurrent was because payments were too slow for fast and cheap settlement to matter all that much. If Swift wants to fix payments for us, that's great. It's one less thing that we have to do. So at the end of the day, am I worried at all about Swift replacing XRP or the XRP ledger or Ripple or any of that? No. In fact, Swift has tried to make a private currency in the past. It never worked because nobody wants to utilize a currency or a digital asset that is controlled by Swift or any other entity. And before anyone brings up the idea of escrow, go do your research on how the escrow actually works, because I'm so tired of arguing that pinpoint in every single video. But regardless, things are changing rapidly behind the scenes. Ripple is a part of all of this. Look at all the groups that actually matter. Look at all these conversations that are happening with the head of payments at all of these companies. You cannot tell me that Ripple is not at every single table. They're eating. They are making sure that they are there and hearing the discussions, being a part of those discussions, because at the end of the day, I've always said it, Ripple will have a role to fill, and so will the XRP ledger and XRP. So with that being said, if you guys did enjoy the video, definitely leave a like, subscribe, set notifications on if you get some more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.